Yes, here we go. Okay, we're opening up. Good. See some people. Hey, Scott, nice to see you on today. Hello, everyone. I'm Robin Jones. I'm the director of the Albert Baker Fund's Career Alliance. This is The Net Effect, episode number 23. So as you're opening your please open up your Q&A. So that's the little icon on your toolbar at the bottom that says Q&A. Click that, please, so we can find out. Hey, Jeff, thanks for doing that. Type your name and where you're from. Love to see that in the Q&A. Just make sure that that's all working. Great. Looked like we were working on Facebook Live as well. So good. Hey, Jim, nice to see you. Thank you. Hey, Corinne. Marianne, thank you. Good. Terrific. Looks like everything's moving along nicely. We'll give a quick second here to let everybody jump in. Get everybody logged in. Hi, Ann. Ian, nice to see you, my friend. I got your question. We got it in the queue. For Rupert, a little bit later. We'll get to that. Hi, Joan. Thank you. Hey, Chris. Former guest. Nice to see you on today, sir. Hope things are going well back your neck of the woods. Terrific. All right, so as you all know, we got to just make sure again that you've downloaded the Zoom app so that you can see us, you can participate in the Q&A. Chat has been disabled, so if you're using that, I'm not really paying attention to that. I'm paying attention to the Q&A. So if you have a question or comment, be sure that you ask it in the Q&A. Remember, this whole purpose of this is to really elevate and think about our career and our direction and all the things that are going on in an inspired way as Jesus challenged his disciples as they were fishing on their boat. We want to welcome our special guest, Rupert. Rupert, Allan is here with us today. We're so glad to have you, sir. He's an amazing young man, has been working in marketing, is a former student for UC Berkeley, has all kinds of awesome things that we're going to talk about here in the next few minutes. So I'm going to do a little bit different intro today than we've done in the past. And we're going to focus on Rupert's story as we move in. But I'm just so grateful that you're here today. So excited. I've been so excited all day. I've been pacing around going, can't wait till this afternoon to talk to Rupert, because he's got some really wonderful ideas and has really taken a unique approach to things. And I think you're all going to really, really enjoy it. So let's get started. This is a wonderful picture of Rupert's alma mater, right? And Rupert, let's kind of step back for a minute and go back to when you were kind of starting college, and let's look at your journey just a little bit about how you got here and you know why you started studying what you did, and let's start with that. How about that? Let's kick it off.
For sure. Just checking you can hear me all right.
All good.
Cool. So yeah, I came from a public high school in Berkeley, out of Pasadena, and when I got into college, I didn't really know what I wanted to study. And actually, let me step back for a second. Thanks for having me on.
Gave me
a little intro there, but thank you for having me, and I hope I'm able to provide any sort of help for anyone who might be listening. So yeah, when I was at Berkeley, it was, I remember visiting the campus and immediately knowing that it was just kind of the right place to be. Just very eclectic architecture and interesting area. Obviously it's right next to San Francisco, and Berkeley is a really amazing place. And so as I was studying, I really just experimented. I tried some business classes. I tried some philosophy classes. I can't remember all the different things I tried. but I landed in a rhetoric class, and I didn't even know that that was a thing that I could study. And
I'm not quite sure what that even is. I mean,
yeah,
I
most
know
people
when
don't
people hear
know.
me talk, well, that's rhetoric, right? I mean,
Yeah. So most people don't know, and I think that's why it's the best major, because you can just confuse people, and then
right.
you just spin it however you want, depending on the job interview, and they wouldn't know if it was true anyway. No, I'm just
Right,
kidding.
right.
But essentially rhetoric, I like to say that it is one of the oldest studies in human history, actually. If you look back at the Greeks, they considered rhetoric to be the capstone of your education. And really, in those days, only the most elite, wealthy people would, get that education. But essentially, it was almost considered like a superpower, and it was an education in how to persuade, how to convince, how to rule a society, how to convince people to essentially make decisions in a democracy. And so in the modern era, we studied all the way from that up until the modern day. And I kind of like to say that modern day rhetoric is basically marketing, advertising, and sales.
I got you.
Because those are like the ways that people essentially communicate, right? And get people to understand effectively why they should buy a product or something like that.
Got it.
And I did not go down the business route, the traditional undergraduate business, which was very popular at Berkeley, because I felt it was too traditional. And I felt that I was going to be confined to, accounting, business administration, or consulting. And those were kind of the three paths. So I just ended up taking the classes that I thought were the most interesting on the side. And then I also minored in theater, just because that was just a fun way to just express myself and, just basically have fun. It also helped with the GPA, I won't lie. So it was a good time.
Nice. So you did take some business classes on the side. You found a major that just fit with your interest, and then you plugged in a minor that was obviously natural for you, right? I mean, you've been in theater, and so you kind of liked all that, right? So it's kind of like avocation too, huh?
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So have you used some of those theater skills? Have those been important to you and some of the things that you've done?
I mean, yeah, definitely. Part of the reason why I did it was, I love public speaking in general. I know that's like, for some reason, considered one of the biggest human fears or something. I find it very exhilarating. And so it was just a great way to practice that in particular. But also, I really think that, a lot of people think that acting is pretending. And sure, that's one way to look at it, but it's also about understanding people. And, you have to step into someone's shoes and live their story while you're acting. And it's not like you're separate from that person. You become that person. And so it helps you understand different perspectives. You learn important things like trusting the other person in the scene, trusting yourself, using your imagination, thinking outside the box. I think there's a lot that can be learned from acting and things like that that are very practical, that I think most people just goes right over went over my head before I really got into it. And so, yes, in the business world, helps with, understanding the other person's side, communicating effectively, empathizing with the consumer's problems, all those types of things.
It's interesting because I think you're right. I think there's probably, parents that go, oh my gosh, they're going to study acting. I'm not sure what to do with that. Right. So, I think that is it's important to note that, because, and particularly today with everything being like we're doing now with webinars, and, you're having to develop these new skill sets that, a lot of that you step right into that easily, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So post-graduation, you graduated, and by the way, he did graduate. He's a pretty good student. I'll just give him that, right? So he's no slouch in the classroom. So after graduation, looks like a lot of different things going on. Rupert, tell us about this journey.
Well, right there, I'll just go down the list. Essentially, after college, I wanted to do a little bit of traveling. I felt like that could open up my worldview a bit. And, you know, it's a great opportunity because, you know, you go into your first interview and they go, well, why didn't you have a job out of college? Well, I wanted to explore the world. And often that'll just land you the job, to be honest, because people are more so interested in that they almost forget who they're interviewing. So I went through South America for 5 months, started in Colombia and went down the western side and ended up in Uruguay. Phenomenal experience. And then I got back and I started to feel restless around month 3, to be honest, but I was seeing so many interesting things and I felt like I needed to be accomplishing something. So I came back and I just started really just looking around. And I remember I was going on LinkedIn and looking at jobs and I said, I want to try sales. You know, I want to see it. I know how to communicate. Maybe that would be a good thing for me. So I did it. And my strategy usually is when I find something that I like, I relentlessly pursue that 1 or 2 or 3 things. I don't really go for like a shotgun approach where it's like, all right, I'm just going to shoot out my resume to 100 companies and hope that someone gets back to me. And that's always been effective for me because I think people can sense when you've really tailored the message to them and put in the effort. So I did that. I got a message back immediately, like the next day, had a couple interviews, you know, went down to Newport. The CEO interviewed me. I was like, okay, great, you know, and I got the job. And so then I moved back up to the Bay. I was down in Pasadena at that time. And I worked for them for like, I think it was like 9 months. And I realized that at about month 7, that I kind of learned everything I thought I needed to learn. And I realized that, I mean, the company culture wasn't particularly invigorating. And so there was just a combination of things that I started looking a little bit for an exit, which, you know, I thought was fine. So during that process, I was traveling all around to these different conferences and meeting people and, you know, and I met a guy and we got to know each other over like 4 months and we ended up becoming business partners and starting our own company. And my decision-making for that particular piece was, well, okay, I'm young. I'm in Silicon Valley. Why not just try something? You know, that's a very condensed version of it. It was more like over 4 months, I really considered all the factors, but if I could boil it down to that, as I kept wrestling with it, it was like, look, what's the worst that could happen? You know, I start my own company. If it fails, I have a good story and I'll have learned things that I would not have learned just sitting in a comfortable sales job. And so I did it. And, you know, we raised some money, talked to some really interesting people, had amazing technology. My business partners continue to be, you know, like almost like family to me today. So the relationships I developed were amazing. And then it got to the point because of the advanced nature of our technology that I felt that I had really done everything I could for the company from a sales and marketing perspective as that leg of the co-founder relationship. And so I decided that like it was time for me to move on and we transitioned the business. And now they're using that technology in a different startup that my co-founder is working for. So, you know, some people from the outside might go, well, did you make money? Did you make a lot of money? Did you lose money? I didn't make a lot of money. That doesn't really matter because the lessons that I learned, I think were worth more than anything. I think it's just part of the journey. And so, and at least I can say I tried it, you know?
Right. Sure.
So then after that, I was like, all right, well, what's next? You know? So then that's where this interim jobs bullets come in. And for about a year, as I was transitioning this business down, I was trying different things and I didn't really know what I wanted to do next. And so I was really listening, and when I step back here, throughout all of these bullet points, I was praying, I was listening, I was, you know, really behind the veil of all these bullet points is my spiritual practice. That is the center of my life, to be honest. And I let my career kind of, you know, follows that. So, so these interim jobs, I didn't really have a clear picture of, you know, okay, this is where I want to go next. And so it took a lot of humility to take these different interim jobs. I ended up tutoring, but it was a great tutoring job actually, because I was being paid well and I was helping kids. I ended up substitute teaching, and I was the chauffeur for a businessman from my church, and we would have fantastic conversations. You know, I maybe could have gone into a career in what he did, but it didn't feel right. So I never really felt rushed to make a decision out of fear. Like, oh, well, here's the first opportunity and, you know, I have to go for it.
Now, why was that? I mean, why didn't fear? Because that's kind of the number one thing that most people have that kind of gets in their way, right? And so what was it that allowed you to be so confident to take these steps and test these different things out?
I mean, honestly, I think the truth, like the spiritual work, honestly, is really what it comes down to. And I think the reason why is because if this is like a simple formula, I just kind of just heard right now. It's like if motive plus like intention, plus you're doing your spiritual work, plus you're willing to be open, like if those are all there and you feel like you're in a good place and you're trusting God, like you can never fail.
Got it.
And so it's like, you're not going to be, I'm always trying to balance. Am I being ungrateful? You know, like, am I just rejecting jobs because I don't think that I'm good enough for that, or that it's not good enough for me or whatever? There's actually in God's plan, in divine mind's plan, only the ideal solution exists. And so, I guess I'll just dive into a story. So anyways, I did a bunch of these interim jobs, and I'm going to weave back into that, and I learned so many interesting things about myself during that time. Every one of the students that I helped with tutoring passed their HSPT, which is like a specific test for private school entrance exams. Every one of them passed their exams with flying colors. And the gal that I worked for, her tutoring company, she usually gave me the sort of challenging students. They were usually the boys that couldn't concentrate or whatever. And I took my spiritual work to that. And also when I was substitute teaching, I remember coming in on the first day of the 7th and 8th grade, and the principal sat me down, or someone did, I can't remember who, said, okay, 7th and 8th graders are really tough. You got to be careful. You got to be really careful. And I was like, no problem. I got this. I remember being 7th and 8th grade and being bored out of my mind. Like, this is no problem. You're frozen there. I just want to make sure I'm still good.
You're good.
Okay, cool. And so I remember going in there and, basically giving them a speech on day one of look, guys, I know how you're feeling, and empathizing with them. And that goes back to the whole acting thing, to the whole rhetoric thing. And they immediately were just like, wow, this guy understands me, and I remember the last day that I was at graduation, 8th grade graduation, the kid that created the most trouble or whatever, he came up to me, he said, I'll never forget you, Mr. Allan.
That's awesome.
And I was honestly floored. I mean, The kid was like, it really hit me hard. Every time I think about it, I'm like, geez, you can't learn that by doing exactly what you think you need to do, and, forcing a plan and worrying. Like, there are opportunities that lead to bigger opportunities when you go backwards. It seems like you're going backwards. Like, why would I go from starting my own company to being a substitute teacher and a tutor? It's like, it almost sounds ridiculous.
Right.
I think that humility is what I learned in that period, is that you got to be willing to just do it. And it's not even like, oh, I'm willing to do it, and then it was so boring. It's like, no, actually, it was just a different aspect that taught me something different about life. And so going back to what I was saying earlier, so then after that period, it came to me strongly. So throughout this period of the interim job search, I was researching a lot. I was ideating a lot about what I think I would do. What are my qualities? What are my strengths? All this kind of thing. And I wasn't really getting anywhere. And I mean, I kind of was. And then I was like, all right, you know what? Something's got to change here. And my parents were always like, look, you got to talk to people. You can't just figure out a solution in the vacuum of your own room. You have to put yourself out there. And so I just was like, all right, I'm just going to start networking. Like, I don't care. I'm done. The pain of not making progress has become more than the pain of networking. and that's when I was like, all right, okay. So then I used Albert Baker Fund was one of the things I used. And I reached out to about, I'd say 10 or 20 people on there that.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing you've been to an event and we had a nice chat. And after the event, all of a sudden I started seeing these career connections flying in from Rupert. And I mean, they were all kinds of different folks, you know, there wasn't any pattern. It was just, you know, okay, Rupert's going for it. I love it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And so the pattern there was, does this look 51% interesting to me? Like this person, I don't even know. Does the industry look interesting? Great. Looks interesting. Good enough. And let me go into this conversation with just an open mind and asking questions and just exploring it. Not like, oh, I need a job or, you know, help me, but just like, what can I learn from this person? Can I get spiritual inspiration from this person if they're that type of person? And it was great. I had great conversations. 9 out of 10 or whatever those people, I didn't end up getting a job from. But do I still remember those conversations? Yes. Were they valuable in helping me feel more inspired? Yes. You know, and then the 10th or whatever, I really connected with a woman, and she, you know, our first call, and she said, well, why don't you come down and meet me in person? We'll have another conversation. So I did that. And then we just kept clicking, and she said, well, I know a guy who, you know, knows a guy, or, you know, like, let me see if I can, give me your resume and I'll send it to him and maybe they have something. I was like, great, let's do it, you know? And so he got the resume, he sent it to the chief marketing officer, and I interviewed with him. And honestly, the day that I walked into the interview, I already knew I had the job. It was weird. It was like, and that's how I knew it was like divinely led. And so this is where it goes back to what I was going to say earlier about when God has a plan. And one of my spiritual mentors told me this: when God, you know that God is leading when it comes with unexpected blessings, like beyond what you even thought was possible, right? It's not just like, yeah, you know, and I'll give you an exact example. I was looking, so I got the job. I had moved down to Orange County, and I was looking for apartments, and there were a few good ones, maybe. But I felt that like hesitation of like, something doesn't feel right, but it looks so good on paper, you know, what's the deal? Is this the right thing for me? I don't know. Maybe I should do it, you know, but I could never push myself to do it. And I kept wondering, am I just being too picky? Am I being ungrateful? Maybe I should just do it. And then I was like, no, I should expect that this should feel like good, not doubtful. You know, we sometimes think, oh, you know, God is great, but when he communicates with us, it's filled with confusion. And no, they're opposites, you know? So someone reaches out to me, and I had, you know, of course I'd done the work. I reached out to like 20, 30 people on Craigslist and whatever. And someone reaches out and said, oh, hey, you know, actually the place that you applied for is still open, and it's actually cheaper than what it was used to be listed at. And we can interview today. And I was like, okay. You know, this has got to be a scam. No one says it's cheaper than it was, you know? So right. I show
Especially
up.
Down in Orange County, right?
Yeah. And the price, and to put it in perspective, the price that before it was cheaper was already cheaper than every other place I looked at. Yeah. And the quality looked good. So it was like, all right, next they're going to be asking me for a Western Union transfer or something, you know?
Right.
And so I show up and I walk in. It's a real place with real people, and they're the nicest people. And I'm like, this is the place. I knew it immediately. This is the place. I'm going. This is it. You know, I'm like, give me the application. They're like, really? I was like, yeah, give me that one. Let's do it. And then they're like, wait, hold on. The last thing you have to do is you have to interview with the landlord. And I was like, oh, okay, well, no problem. You know, I'm good with interviews. No problem. And so they're like, sometimes she's a little tough. Anyways, fast forward to the interview. She ends up being a Christian Scientist. Okay. And I'm like, all right. Okay.
Wow.
This is what it means to have unexpected blessings, cheaper than every other location. The quality of the apartment was amazing. The quality of my roommates is amazing. And the only reason I say this is not to be like, oh, this is another great testimony of how great everything works, but because it's a principle that we should expect, that when we're looking for the next move, when the interim steps might be a little choppy and we might need to take the humble steps, but when it does align, you'll get the job plus the apartment plus the friends plus, I mean, like, and that apartment continues to like pour out blessings. And it was kind of a landmark demonstration for me for career and life moves. And so like, I continue to trust in that simple idea that if I'm doing my spiritual work, if I'm taking action and putting myself out there, and if I'm listening and I'm open, I cannot fail. It might look different than I expected, but I can't fail. So that frees me. Then it also helps me in interviews, right? I just tell the truth. That's it. I go in. If I'm not excited about the job, I tell them. Then they might go, you know what? Maybe we need to find something to make this guy excited. You know, and it's like just that honesty, leading with the truth and trusting. I'm not saying you just go in and you say whatever you want. That's not what it's about. It's about speaking from the truth of like, this is how I'm feeling because this is how God is informing me, you know? And that's helped me with interviews, with jobs, with negotiations, with business settings, with career moves and all that. And so let me pause there and let me know if you have any questions.
Well, no, I love what you're saying. I mean, you've kind of captured the spirit of the fact that your work that you've done spiritually and preparing for all of it. I mean, it's not just the job, it's also the place that you're living, and it's, you know, it's all the room, it's the whole thing, right? It wasn't just one thing, it was complete. And, you know, and work, having that foundation that you're talking about spiritually, as you're saying, is connecting you with all those different parts, and they're manifesting themselves in true demonstrable fashion, right?
Exactly. It's exactly that. And I'm not saying it's once it's solved forever. I'm working through that right now. You know, I was just laid off. And so I'm probably in the same boat as a lot of people listening right now. And I'm not saying that there's not that every day I wake up and jump out of bed and, you know, land on the spiritual cushions. You know, sometimes it's like, I gotta grind it out, and I gotta try a different approach, and, you know, think about it from a different perspective, and reach out to my, you know, Christian Science teacher, or reach out to my mentors or whatever, you know. And generally my Christian Science teacher told me that action absorbs anxiety. And that's very like human practical piece of advice that I've found to be effective. Now I should go back to that previous slide for me, please.
Yep.
This one is something I've been learning recently, which I realized in hindsight I was learning back then, that your true job is to express God. And that there's that quote in Science and Health, or it might be Prose Works, about the warfare with oneself is, you know, grand employment or something like that. Essentially the idea is like, you have a job already, and just do it. Stop worrying about finding that perfect job out there, and start remembering that each day you wake up and you get closer to God. And then through that, that's like the kingdom of heaven. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and the rest shall be added unto you. If you start to feel fear, if I start to feel fear, I just go back to that. And that's it. You know, today I got my daily bread, and that was today I grew some way spiritually. I don't have a job right now, but I will have one eventually. And it's like, fear is basically like, you're saying to God, you don't have a plan for me, you know, and you're believing it. And I'm not saying it's that you never will experience fear, or that I will never experience fear, but I bring myself back to the center with that. And I realize, just express love and get to a place of peace, and then the next step will present itself. Well,
you have an answer. You have a counterfact, right, to rely on to be able to meet that,
yeah,
whatever that argument is, whatever that suggestion is. You're not without a tool to be able to deploy to help meet that challenge, right?
Yeah.
So I looked at this list, and I'm thinking, this is, you know, pretty standard. And I look at this one that says Briefcase Technique, and I go, what on earth is Rupert talking about there? What the heck is a briefcase technique?
Okay, yeah, this is great. This is phenomenal. So this was during that last interim period. Remember how I said I was doing lots of research, right?
Yep.
I'm always looking for ways. You know, reading is phenomenal. If you don't know what else to do, just go read something. Get off your own mind and your own worries, and go read something. What are the 10 best ways to build a resume? What's the, you know, 50 best things to say in an interview, whatever, it just learn something and it'll help you eventually. And the briefcase technique was one of those. And this guy talked about how he landed a job one time. I think he said, or it was like either a sale or a consulting, whatever. And he said, what I did and what I do consistently is when I go into an interview or I'm trying to land a sale, I'll write up a brief for the company and I'll do a bunch of research on the company and I'll basically do an analysis of their problems for my specific role that I'd be solving for them.
That's interesting.
And then I come
So how do you find the problems? I mean, what do you look at?
Well, I mean, it depends on your role. But I think,
Gotcha.
In each case, so for example, when I went in to hire for my previous marketing strategy job,
Mm-hmm.
I did a market analysis and I analyzed all the different parts of the business. I said, I analyzed their website, their copy, their advertising strategy, their whatever rhetoric. However I believed I would be able to solve a problem for them. And it could be different for everybody. Let's say you're a coder, break down, hey, look, these might be some of the problems you're experiencing. Even if you're wrong about the exact problem, they're going to go, wow, this guy or this girl literally took the time. And so the one I wrote for last job was 10 pages long, had diagrams and all kinds of things, put it in a nice, binded thing, nice letterhead and everything. Showed up at the interview, put it on the table, 3 copies, one for my boss, one for the CEO of the company, and one for me. And
nice.
It shifted the focus of the interview away from, is this the right guy?
Right.
Let me hyper analyze what are your strengths and weaknesses and all these things, to, wow, we have a serious business topic to discuss now. I think the guy isn't even working here yet, right? And when I saw this technique that this guy wrote about, I was like, that's genius. Because it just reframes the conversation around something valuable, and it makes them realize that you understand a sliver of their business more than every other candidate potentially. And it also takes the pressure off of you. So that's how I landed the last job. I recently just did this with another thing. It's just what I think continue to rely on. If I land an in-person, or I guess even a Zoom interview, you could send it to them via email.
Sure. Why not? We're using PowerPoint right here. You could easily throw up a slide deck and put things on there and walk them right through it. Why wouldn't you do that?
Exactly.
I mean, that's what you're going to have to do if you're working for someone. That's the things that I'm on Zoom every day, multiple times during the day, with different things that I'm doing. So why wouldn't you do something like that?
Yeah.
I love it. That's just great.
And then the other practical one that I'll mention, the list of 25, that goes back to the whole networking thing. What I did this time and what I will continue to do when I get into these things is just make a list of 25 people. Doesn't matter if you think they're going to get you a job or whatever, and just talk to them and just start there. Literally 25 people with check boxes, set up the call. And literally you will be shocked at when you talk to people in your network, outside your network, your family. You can, if you don't have 25 people that you know professionally, you put your mom and dad on there, put your daughter on there, whatever, and go in with the intention that it could lead to some idea that might help you get to the next place.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's wonderful. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, golly, I can't believe how quickly the time goes. Let's talk about if you're a student. So what do you recommend for students right now? So let's go through this.
Sure. I'd say if you're in the middle of college right now, or you're entering, or even if you're your last year and you have enough time, study things that halfway interest you. That's probably my biggest regret, is that I didn't study computer science. It's fine. Maybe it wasn't meant to be, but if I could go back, I would have done it, because it would have given me a lot of freedom to build things that I want to build without having to rely on someone else.
So let me just ask you a question, because Ian asked a question earlier, or before we started, and his question was, what if you're in the middle of your senior year? Should you change your major? And what if you want to change your major? What are your thoughts about that? Looking back, and knowing what you know now, you're in the middle of something, you're in the middle of this, you've taken this step, and yet now all of a sudden I have an epiphany. I want to change my major.
I would say that there's practical considerations to that question, that you're going to have to sort out. I would, if I was standing in that situation, I probably would not change my major. I would just study the things that interested me. And in hindsight, your major's not that important. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, what do you mean? It's not that important.
Well, I think that's important. Tell us why you think that. I think that there's a lot of people that may not agree with that.
Because there is always a solution after college. There's always a solution no matter where you are. Now, on the same hand, look, if you really want to change your major, if you can get it done in the same time period and it's not going to cost you an exorbitant amount of money or, something like that, go for it. I mean, but for me, if I was looking at it, it would take me another 2 years and I'm going to have to spend another $60K or something or whatever to get that done. I would go, is there a more creative way for me to get this done? Can I go to a coding school, like as an example, sorry, what?
No, sorry. That was for Betsy there. Sorry.
Oh, okay. We're doing some private communications here.
Yeah, we had a question through. Yeah, and I tried to answer that real quick.
All good. So, it depends on the situation, but I would say that listen and pray if those are things that you do. Maybe double major. I would just say that there's always a creative solution and it might be different than you expect. And the reason I say that your major is not that important is because if you look at successful people, what they studied in college versus where they ended up. I mean, there's guys who are history majors who went on to go found tech companies. There's guys who are tech guys who went on to write novels. It's a fluid process. And I think so much emphasis is placed on you go from your major into a specific career and that's it. And someone else might give you a different piece of advice who's more, straight down the line. You've seen all the zigzags I've done. So keep that in consideration. If that's something you're comfortable with, go with that. But don't make a decision out of fear. Make it because it feels right, I guess.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think I think you're right. I agree with what you're saying about you really need to weigh the factors that are there. It might just need to you just need to get finished. And then whatever it is that's now the new interest, look at how can I get certifications? I mean, there's a lot of really great options at community colleges. Dr. Ajay talked about that. We talked about that a few weeks ago. And I've had my own children that have gone to community colleges. In fact, Mary Jo just got 4 of her certificates in the mail the other day. So there's a lot of different ways to address that if there's inspiration and that comes forward. So it is a consideration that you have to take on carefully. So now, how do you view?
I've got 2 more things to say on that.
Okay, good.
One thing is it's about what are the principles or ideas that were learned in whatever major you do have.
Right.
That could be translated to whatever you think you want to study next. Now, if they're totally unrelated, it might not apply. But for example, with rhetoric, it's not a traditional major. I didn't major in business marketing or sales, but the principles that I was able to identify, I was able to communicate that to whoever was hiring me and say, look, you might not know what rhetoric is, but let me tell you why what I learned is applicable to you. And the other thing is that if you really want something, you'd probably already be doing it. So, if you're not doing it yet, start doing it. And also you can always go and especially in an economy like this, find someone or somewhere and just be relentless. It's like, I don't know what you're trying to get into, but it's like, I want to be a computer scientist and I don't know how to code. Go find someone who's a coder and say, look, I will work for you for free.
Right.
For 3 months, if you'll just teach me the basics, and then they'll probably say, go to YouTube. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of things that I've learned on YouTube that it's absurd. There's so much free knowledge available that if you really want it, you can just do it. And then you just have to be confident enough in yourself to go, look, I've demonstrated a little bit. I've just got the first sliver. Now let me go prove that to somebody and build the second and then the third. And it's just like a step-by-step thing.
So how are you viewing the job landscape now? I mean, are you going to stick with marketing? Are you going to be moving to something different? I mean, how are you now are you going to take some time out to look at things? Where are you with, viewing the job landscape right now, since you recently have been let go? but you've got all this wonderful experience that can really help you land whatever role you want, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I really am taking some time. I I have skills. I've already had things where it's like something has sort of been presented to me and I've said, I don't know about that, and I think that comes again from the same place of trusting that it'll feel right. And really knowing like, where is the place, and looking back on the job that I just did and going, was I able to express my godlike qualities the most in that scenario? And will I be able to continue to do that in the next role? And if the answer is, maybe, there's probably a better answer. And so I don't go with what's safe. I go with what God wants me to do. And sometimes that seems weird. It seems, now everybody's story is different. Some people might want just that more traditional route, in which case that'll feel right for them, and so that's fine. Everybody's different. But yeah, I'm analyzing the job landscape from, maybe I'll do some consulting, maybe I'll do some freelancing. I'm interviewing, and I'm being honest in my interviews, and you never know. I might interview with someone and then I'll feel it, it'll connect and I'll go, this is the right thing. But I won't know until I do, and that's something I've had to really kind of hammer into myself, is that you don't know until you just do. That's like the Nike just do it thing, right? And it's okay to say no. It's okay to try something and then go, actually, no, this isn't right. So that's kind of how I'm viewing it. I'm staying open. I'm trying different things. And I'm also analyzing and thinking about, what qualities do I want to express and where might that line up?
And are there particular skills that you're trying to develop, or new skills that you're trying to learn during this period?
Yeah. So I would say that like the main skills that I used in the past few years have been oriented around like conversion optimization, paid media strategy for Facebook and Google, building marketing technology stacks for the company, CRM, which is a customer relationship management platform, which is basically just a platform that handles all your customers' data, and like how that all works together, and then content creation, social media, and things like that. And I was pretty hands-on in terms of like manipulating the levers and making performance go up. And I think if I'm going to keep going down that path, I think the next step would be going higher into the strategy side and more into the management, and inspiring other people to be able to understand how to use these tools and build things out. But I also really like negotiating. I really like, when I believe in something, I'm a great salesman. So I think I might, like, a part of me is leaning towards, more just, it sounds weird, but just more business, like either owning a business and being more multidisciplinary again. Mm-hmm. And then there's also a very creative side of me, right? A lot of the job that I enjoyed in the advertising side was the content creation. So I'm kind of going, what makes me the happiest? Regardless of the money, that's been a big demonstration for me that I continue to come back to, is to realize that, if I could put money to the side and do what God wants me to do, and do it with love and not have a fear about money, what would I really be doing? And it takes courage for me to keep revisiting that and going higher about it. But I know that once I get through it and over it, that I'll be able to really feel more of that, I guess, like that alignment with what spirit or love is really telling me I should be doing.
Well, I know we've talked about this theme throughout, and obviously you're a big believer in networking with folks, and you've talked about that. But I have a couple of questions for you. One is from Hannah, and she said, well, what about networking with people who live far away in other countries? Have you had any kind of experience with that? Do you have any thoughts about that? And what might be some of the best practices for that?
I'd say that's a hard no. I'm just kidding.
I don't believe that.
Of course.
I'm about to fall out of my chair, Rupert.
You're like, wait a second, this isn't how it's supposed to be going.
No, what's up?
Of course. I mean, it can never, like, having a conversation with someone, unless your schedule is already packed to brim 24 hours in the day never hurts. It can only lead to something good, which is at the very least a good conversation with someone. And you might be amazingly surprised. You might have a conversation with this person and they go, you know what, actually, like, we're looking for someone, do you want to come to Europe? I mean, that is on the table. You don't know until you have the conversation. And I think it's really about volume, actually. The conversations it's about volume plus making sure you care about each conversation, obviously. But like, I say volume because you don't want to go into one conversation that you've set up and you've been waiting for 3 weeks, and then you have the conversation and then you didn't get the job or something you're holding and you're thinking isn't right about it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, the networking didn't work out. No, it's just go in with 20 conversations and have a bunch of fun, have a fun time, get to know people, and like find what's great about it. And then that'll lead to something.
And I think what you said earlier about how your briefcase tech strategy, I like that. I think you can also do the same thing with respect to networking. Do some homework. If there's a particular industry that you're focusing on, you can reach out to individuals that are stateside, that are, or people that may know people in those particular professions. So if I'm interested in marketing, and then you can start having informational interviews with them because they have a network of people and they may know people somewhere in France or in Europe or in Uruguay, whatever it might be, that just beginning that track, if that's where I want to go. So do a little bit of homework, it may take you more than you think. So expect it as you're going along the way that there are people out there that are willing to help you. You just gotta uncover that. So do some homework, find those professionals in the targeted career path you want to go, and then begin to ask them, who do you know? And it's a real simple question. Who do you know in the United Kingdom in this? And they'll start to talk to you, and it'll be amazing. Oh yeah, I remember Betsy over in London. She's a wonderful contact. Even if she doesn't, she knows a lot of people. She knows a whole lot of people. So I'd call her if I were you. So be prepared to do your homework if that's what you want to do. Look around and see if there are special social networks that are, indigenous to that community or that country, because every country is a little bit different, especially when you go over into Africa, if you want to go into that world. So there are things you can do, and they're really practical. It's not daunting. It's just, it does take some effort and to be able to do that. So find out what's happening and then start to connect with people that and then start to reach out with local people maybe that are outside your own network, but at least you'll have a feel for the landscape. So that's what I would say. So, but develop a strategy. Rupert talked about that earlier, and that even if it's not the right strategy, you can develop one. You can alter it, change it, edit it, throw it away, but at least you've got something moving forward, and that you always want some kind of game plan as it relates to that.
Yeah, and then one other thing I'll say on that is I really think that vulnerability and honesty go a long way in networking. And this may be a non-traditional piece of advice, but in every one of the conversations I went into, it wasn't just about a job. I really tried to understand the person and try to get them to understand where I was, even if it was, look, I don't know what I want. I really don't. I think I like what you do, but I need to hear from you. What is your job like?
Right.
And all of a sudden they're going to go, wow, that really cut through the fluff. This isn't someone trying to, overly engineer a result. They're really just like looking for help. And I think there's just a natural human desire to help when it's sort of appealed to.
Well, Nancy says, allow yourself to be a connector and help others as they've helped you. Nancy
True.
Allan, we might know who that is.
I recognize that name.
I know you do. And then Betsy, I love what Betsy, she says, I love what I'm hearing. The confidence that comes from trust and doing something in an unconventional way is inspiring. And I think it is. And great ideas coming from other people. all of it's really good, Rupert. Really good stuff, man. Let's talk about your takeaways, because we got to get to the end of this. I can't, again, it's just been a wonderful time. So let's get to these takeaways.
Yep. I think, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I think you got to listen. In other words, listen and pray. Be open, like goes back to the whole interim job thing, and take action. You know, just pretty straightforward. And just trust in that process. And then from a more practical level, learn skills that you think you might want to use or, you know, do, and know that, you know, everybody started somewhere at the beginning. So don't be afraid to be like, hey, I'm a beginner and I'm learning something, you know, read and be prepared. Be prepared really means like have your resume ready, you know, polish it up. One of the things I recently just discovered is that my resume, because of the formatting, wasn't ATS readable, which means that the AI algorithms that these big companies use, or even small companies now, couldn't even, it said I didn't even have any work experience on my resume. So it didn't matter if I was applying, there was just a simple mistake. So that's something I need to be more prepared. So I fixed it, you know? And then obviously to talk to lots of people, to get your foot in the door by adding value goes to the briefcase technique,
Right.
But also to, you know, I guess you could say in an uncertain economy, I mean, that's not necessarily metaphysical, but being willing to take a step backwards and show like, look, I'm different than everyone else. I'll work for you for free. Or, you know, I'll take a pay cut for the first 3 months and then we're going to bump up to regular wage. Like they're going to go, okay, wow, this person really wants it, you know? And think long-term. I guess what I really mean by that is that don't get too focused on, and I all the advice I'm giving, I have to give to myself, but don't
Right.
get too focused on, I don't have a job right now. It's like, it all smooths out over time, you know? And so kind of enjoy the fact that you have time to pray and listen, or that you have a time to rediscover what it is that you want to do, or read books, or, I mean, otherwise you're sitting in a vacuum and it becomes negative and myopic.
And we've kind of covered these points earlier, so we're going to go right to the wrap up.
Yep.
And I've tried to put some of these questions in earlier, so I think we're in pretty good shape. But one of the things that I was hoping that we would talk about in closing is, how do you think? I mean, I had this question, and you're looking at this. Is there anything more that you can say to a person that's thinking about changing their careers, or, you know, changing into a different industry during this time?
Yeah. Well, I'll be speaking for myself again because I'm thinking down that route. I would say that if it's a significant change and there's no principles that translate from one move to the next, you're going to have to take a step or two backwards. And if you can stomach that, and if I can stomach that, and I can go, well, you know what, I'll really enjoy that work. I don't really mind that I'm going to be making 75, you know, percent, or I don't know, I'm throwing numbers out, 25% less or whatever. Then you have basically, you're good to go, you know? I'd also say that finding ways to show credibility, even if it's small versions, is important. Maybe there's a online class you can take or something, or you can work for someone for free, or show willingness. And then I really think the third one is being willing to be vulnerable and honest about where you sit, and to be humble. And that goes back to the whole, would I work for free for someone, and beg them to teach me, you know, whatever they know.
I think those are all wonderful ideas, wonderful thoughts. I've launched our poll. If everyone would take a few minutes, it really doesn't take you a few minutes. It takes you maybe a minute to answer those questions for us. We appreciate all your feedback when you give that to us. Rupert, it's been terrific again today. The hour blew by really fast. Good information. I just want to talk a little bit as in closing this afternoon, to make sure that everybody knows, if you have any questions about what we do at the Albert Baker Fund, you can go to our website, and I've highlighted and circled this area as it relates to apply and what we fund. Christian Science Nursing, North America, CS Boot Camp, U.S. Chaplain. So there's a lot of things on there and a lot of information. And gosh, we really work hard to support our community and the different things we do. If you're not a career ally, or you haven't, as Rupert has done, reached out to connect with our community, you should. We have incredible career allies every week. You know, it's just remarkable and marvelous, and of the guests that we have, and they're all career allies, and there's a whole lot more. So if you haven't reached out, please do so. It's really simple. Just go to abfcareeralliance.org, click on this job seeker button, and it'll take you right into the pathway to be able to reach our connections and jobs board. So I highly recommend it. And if you're not a career ally yet, please become one. Same thing. Go to this little yellow box, click it, and you can easily find your way through to post a career connection, a job, or an internship. If you'd like to connect with Rupert directly, I recommend it highly. He's got a lot to say, and he's wonderfully helpful and willing to help others. So I've posted his career connection on our Twitter account, which is on every single page on the Career Alliance. It's on the right-hand side. Just go to the right, go down, and you'll see his connection. And all you got to do is click that link that's right there, and you'll start that process. We have great tools to help one in this environment. Our Life Launch course is excellent. It's the best there is out there. Great information that our friend Don Asher helped us put together. He's remarkable, funny, it's entertaining, and it's great information. I just posted these jobs, in fact, today. These jobs are really highlighting what's happening this summer at Crystal Lake camps. So they just posted these jobs today, and I wanted everybody to see, hey, you know what? It's time to start thinking about next summer. So I wanted to get this up and show you what's available and have people start thinking about how they can help serve. And this is a wonderful, wonderful camp. I love all the folks at Crystal Lake. It's always fun to go there and work with the staff every summer. So if you have any questions or you would like to know about these, just go to the abfcareeralliance.org, go to the Connections and Jobs page, and you can search those titles, and up comes those jobs. So we appreciate everything that our community has been doing to support our students. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude is what they continue to say. And we've seen more and more applications this year because of the increased need with all the things that are happening. So we appreciate your support. Continue, please, as we continue to help our kids, and those needs come forward and we see them. So we appreciate all that. Make sure that you like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram, and connect with us on LinkedIn. Again, I'm posting jobs, I post career connections, and we have wonderful content that's going on to our social media. It's a great way to keep in touch with us, and share it with your friends and family so that others can see what's happening and they can also have the benefit. Man, I can't believe how fast this went, Rupert. It was awesome. You did a terrific job. We're so happy to have you, and we're so grateful that you support what we're doing and that you were willing to be with us this afternoon.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
And I want to say thank you to the incredible team at the Albert Baker Fund for all the amazing work that you do. Jeff, Carol, Ann, Ray, Donna, Joe, Janie, and Jill. It's just an unbelievable team, and we just love everything that you're doing. So remember, if you have any questions, reach out to me, Robin, at albertbakerfund.org, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. So for Mr. Rupert Allan, our dear friend, we will be signing off, and we thank you all and look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
See you, Rupert.